Okay, we're going live. Oh, look at that. All right. Welcome. Today is July 23rd, 2024. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres in lovely Marion, Michigan. The United States of America. All right. Well, first of all, I've got something to announce. We are going to be having a poultry processing workshop this Saturday at Baker's Green Acres. So that's what? Boy, that's a long way away. Today's the 23rd, so that's going to be the 27th. Okay, and that starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. You could start rolling in here about 8:30. Coffee, all that good stuff, meet and greet, and then we're going to be heading out to pick up chickens right off the field. These are Baker's Green Acres pastured poultry chickens. We'll be picking them up. I think there's 9 people in the class right now. So we could take probably 5 or 6 more, not a problem. So we'll be picking up chickens and we'll bring them back to the shop. And we'll do a brief, talk about processing and how it's worked for us and, how it fits into the whole operation. There's kind of a lot to see. And then we will start right in on processing chickens. We'll do a couple of them, and then everybody will have a chance to process, several chickens themselves. My kids will be helping, so you'll have people looking over your shoulder and telling you, do this, don't do this. And the goal is that when your chickens are ready, you can process your own chickens. There's a lot more people raising chickens these days. Actually, there's a lot more people getting into homesteading these days. And I believe that the key is to be able to process your own animals. I really do. So if you can process a chicken, you can probably process a rabbit. If you can do a rabbit, you could probably do a goat. If you can do a goat, you could do a sheep, and so on. And then if you like what you see here in our instruction and being immersed in the Baker's Green Acres culture is really what it is. I mean, it's kind of a way of life here. Then you might want to come to a hog processing class in the fall, November, on or about November 1st. Let's see, when will that be? Yeah, well, the day, let's see. Yeah, it is the 1st. Hog Harvest is the 1st. It's a Friday. It's a 3-day class, 2.5 maybe, but you would be here for 3 days. That's a little bit more in-depth process than doing chickens, obviously. And in that class, we start with live hogs and we finish up on Sunday with bacons that are on cure and sausage that's been made, and you learn how to make chops and you learn how to bone out shoulders and what to do with the head, what to do with the entrails. It's a pretty exhaustive class. Very good though. This is going to be our 14th year of doing it. 14th year. So let's see if we can get people giving us the thumbs up and commenting. That really helps with the algorithms, right? And I think it's important to do that because we want to get this information out to as many people as possible. I'm feeling even more now that food security is a good thing. Not just a good thing. It's a smart thing to do. It's really good to know these processes. And of course, if you are here for the chicken processing class, you get to see how things fit together on this installation, right? We try to, show people around and get them motivated and enabled to do what they need to do, right? Okay, we got Keith with us tonight. Real quick, Keith Sutton is still in the hospital, and he's going to be there for another 2 weeks. Talked to him today. Okay, and he's saying he doesn't know how long he's going to be awake. He got so motivated that he pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and he really renovated his homestead. And so motivated that he was on the top of a building and took a tumble off and broke some ribs and fractured his backbone too. So he's been in the hospital now for, I think, 2 weeks. And every time I talk to him, he's pretty doped up, but he's going through physical therapy. And he told me today that he believes he'll be home beginning of next month, right? Beginning of next month in August. So let's hope for the best for Keith and offer up a few prayers for him. He could certainly use it. But he told me today that his morale is good. And I told him that one time I had an injury here. I took a spill on my motorcycle and I broke my leg. I broke the bottom part of my leg, my ankle, more like. And one of them was broke and one of them was just fractured. But still, I couldn't walk on that for a while, without crutches. And so I made the best of it. It wasn't great, but I made the best of it. And so I'm encouraging him to try and do the same thing. Read some books, plan some things, what you want to do when you're able. And that will help to get you on your way to recovery. And, we all have things like that. They don't have to be as bad enough to get you in the hospital, but you can have a bad day that you need to recover from. Just mental things that happen. So we're in the afterglow, I would say, of Tribe Day. This was Tribe Day. This was our fourth one. And this wasn't last weekend. It was the weekend before. And it was tremendously successful. I think that the key to actually, Keith was the one that said it to me. He was saying, hey, thanks a lot for all that you've done for me. And hey, what have I done for you? And he says, well, it's just your way of life. And I guess our way of life is quite different because we work here as a family. We pretty routinely open the place up to others to come on and work with us. And so it is a way of life. It is definitely a way of life, the farming way of life. We are busier than we have ever been since we switched away from, I guess, our commercial model of doing one thing and a lot of it to more of a homesteading model where we are far more diversified. And then we're able to bear down on some of the things that have really worked good for us. And one of the things that's worked good for us is processing, is butchering. We run a chicken processing business, usually 1 day a week, but sometimes 2 days a week. We open up to people from the neighborhood, which the neighborhood's getting pretty big right now, and people can bring their chickens here and we process them for them. And, it's a service that we provide and it's gone really well. It brings more people onto the farm. It brings more people past our store, which helps with selling the stuff that we produce. And it's been all around good thing. And we make money doing it. I mean, I don't want to tell anybody to do anything that you're not going to make a gain on. It's kind of a rule that I've kind of lived by my whole life. If I make a gain on it, then I think it's a good thing to do. I've never really been into like golf or bird watching or anything like that. That's just strictly something you pay to do. I am more into things that I enjoy doing that give me a gain. My family benefits from it. So our chicken processing business for sure benefits our family. We do quite well with it, just even 1 day a week. And it gets busier and busier as the summer goes by. And then we get into fall time and we wind up doing turkeys. And doing turkeys pays really well because people don't want to do it. And if we are going to provide a service, we get paid to do it, and we get paid pretty well to do it. So sometimes I get chastised about getting people into what we do to make money because then it's competition for us. But I think that is such a wide open field that I don't think there's a problem there. And I really don't want to do it 5 days a week. I really don't want to process chickens 5 days a week. And nobody here does either. So we have 1 day a week that we all throw down as a family, just get to it. Right now I have one of John Spears' kids helps us. John Spears from Spears Automotive in Cadillac, good friends of ours. There was 3 of them at one time, but they've gotten older and they're into other things and they've moved on. But the youngest, the middle girl is still coming and helping when she can. But she really enjoys it more than, getting paid to do it. She likes working with my kids and just being here. And then we usually are done in time to go in the pool and have some fun. And she likes to be with the animals and just be with us. So it's a good thing. And then my niece and nephew from the Clark family are helping. And this year we took them on as employees, which is a little bit different status. If they're just helping and it's a motivational tool, we don't really pay them that much. We'll just give them something to make them feel, understand hey, I'm putting out and I need to be compensated. That's something kids need to learn. But the Clark kids been with us. This is going to be their 3rd year. And so they came on as employees. And that required a little bit of a conversation like, hey, you're working here now, so you're no standing around, no going to the bathroom 5 times. You're expected to be on station and do what you have to do. And it's worked out really good. They've both stepped up to the challenge. Really good kids. I really like having them here too. So, and I know that all my kids have gone through it. There's what? Oh boy, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that are out of the house. 5 of them that are out of the house. There's only 3 in the house right now. And they all did chicken processing with us. They all did. So they know that business really well. And I don't expect them to, break away from the fire department to come and help us with chickens. But it's a good thing because they learn a work ethic. And we've found with our kids, they go out into the world, they get educated on something, but really what carries them through is their attitude towards work or their work ethic, right? They put their head down, they get it done, and then it's, time off, and then they have money to do things that they want to do, and they're all doing pretty well. Very well, I should say. I've got 2 kids that are in the service, and they're both doing outstanding job in the service. And that can be tough because a lot of kids come in and don't know how to work. So yeah, that's what we do. A little bit of what my day was like today. Every summer, I am tasked with cutting all my hay. And for like my neighbors, it's just like they take it in stride. They just get out there, do it, bail it up, done. And then they're on to the next thing. For me, it's more of a process, right? It's a longer process because I have older equipment and I don't have big equipment. And that works for us because we have very wet ground on about half the farm. So I can't really get down there with heavy equipment. And heavy equipment is very expensive. And I'm really only cutting, 60 acres of hay. So it's not a huge amount that requires big equipment. If you're doing hundreds of acres, you've got to have bigger equipment bigger, powerful, heavier equipment. But then there's a price tag that comes with that too. And our model is a little bit different. I have friends that cut hay, and they cut lots of hay, and then they sell the hay. Well, I don't sell hay. I do not sell hay because I only have 60 acres worth of hay. So I just have the animals required to eat that hay. So the hay, the grass comes up every year. I cut it, store it, and I only store as much as I need, right? I don't usually go overboard with it so I can sell it. I don't do that. It's better for me to run that hay through a cow and then milk that cow and sell the milk. It's far more profitable. Or run it through a beef cow, slaughter the beef, which we have our own slaughterhouse here, and then sell the beef. That's far more profitable. But it's more labor intensive. That's what's called value adding. So in order to add value, you have to know how to do it. You can't just build a slaughterhouse and go to slaughtering cattle, because you got to have certain skills. And that kind of weaves into what I want to talk about tonight, about the homestead model. The homestead model, and this is going to be titled Perfection on the Homestead, or Balancing Perfection on the Homestead. All right. But my day today was, I had about 65 bales that were out on the field, and I've got to get them loaded on a wagon, bring them up to the barn, get them in the barn. And I got about 54 of them in. And then it was time to go fishing, right? It was go fishing today, because my son Sam is home from the Air Force, and that's what he wanted to do today. So we set some time aside this afternoon, right after lunch. We went over to Ebel's, our favorite hardware store and general store, and it's just 5 miles from the house. If you haven't been to Ebel's, you need to go to Ebel's. And I don't get paid to say this, but it's a great store, nice people. And so we went over there. They have a gun section, so we looked at all the guns and stuff. We looked at the fishing equipment. You know, we talked with the people that work there, talked about different things. And then we got in the Pilot, that's our car, and hauled the boat over to a lake that's close by here, just another 5 miles down the road. Put it in. I think we were in by about 2, and we caught, between the 4 of us, 12 really nice smallmouth bass, or largemouth bass, really nice ones. And we let them go. We let them go because we have plenty of fish here. And that's a whole nother story too, but that's an interesting story. I might as well tell you that story. So we milk cows, we bottle up the milk or jar it up. We put it in jars sort of like this jar, but only half-gallon jars. And then we cool it, and we put it in a refrigerator that we have in the shop. And people sign up for herd shares, and they get a certain amount of milk per week. Some people get 2 gallons a week. Some people get a half a gallon a week. Some people get, some people will swing in and get 5 gallons and then freeze it. And, if they live far away and they just don't want to be making the trip all the time. So our milk business has been doing pretty well. But there is a guy, a real interesting guy. He came here, was it last summer, for the first time. He came here to get his chickens processed. This guy's name is Eric. And he's from downstate. And around here, downstate people, they're like, they call them flatlanders and stuff. I'm neither, because I'm not from here. And he's a real interesting guy. He's got a business down there, and then he's got a summer home up here. And so he came and needed his chickens processed, and we did that. And he took a liking to my youngest son, Frank, because Frank was just at it, unloading his chickens for him and stuff. And he says to Frank, "Hey, do you do any bow hunting around here?" And Frank's, "Nah, I haven't got into bow hunting yet. I just usually just gun hunt right now." "Oh, so you gun hunt?" And Frank's like 10 at the time. No, he would have been 11. And so he says, "Hey, I've got a crossbow that I upgraded from it. And my daughter doesn't use it anymore. Would you like to have that?" He says, "I'll bring it up for you." Frank's like, "Yeah, yeah." So Eric brought this crossbow up, and Frank had the time of his life tuning up that crossbow, shooting it, and got good with it. He didn't get a deer this year with it, but he tried. He tried. Well, anyway, Eric did a really nice thing for my son, and so he says, "Hey, I'd like to get some milk." He says, "Yeah. Are you guys interested in fish at all?" He says, "I fish a lot. I love to go fishing." He says, "I'll trade you milk for fish." I'm like, "Sure, we love fish." So he only likes a certain kind of fish out of a certain place, but he fishes all over the place. And he brings us trout and salmon and walleye, right? Real nice stuff that he cleans it all up and brings it in, package it in bulk kind of bags, and Jill packages it up for our freezer. So we trade milk for fish, and it's a nice trade. So we had fish for lunch today. Thank you, Eric. It was outstanding. Put it on the smoker. We sat down to lunch today, and it was the three of my sons, me and Jill, and we're sitting out under the tree having this wonderful smoked fish and coleslaw, right? And I just said, we are very rich people. We are very rich people. Look what we're having for lunch. And it was salmon. Eric doesn't like salmon. Doesn't like salmon. I can't understand that. It was the best, right? I ate until I couldn't eat anymore. And yeah, so that was kind of our day. Went and did some fishing, got home. I fell asleep in the chair in the front room, and everybody made fun of me. But yeah, okay. So I want to talk about balancing perfection on the homestead. And I am kind of changing my position on this because I come out of a world where, working in aviation, there is no half stepping anything. Everything is done as good as it can be done. Like, so an airplane rolls out of the factory, it is the way they designed it, and that's the way it's going to be, right? And so you don't deviate from that at all. And that's just the culture that I was in for a long time. Even before I was in the service, I was an aircraft mechanic. And the stuff is done to perfection. But with that idea of perfection, sometimes in this world that I live in now, in the homesteading world or the farming world, it doesn't always fit. And here's why. A lot of times, well, you can hear it raining out there. I got my hay in. Now the field's getting nice, and yeah, love it. In this world, a lot of times we have to build things. Like in the homesteading world, you build things, you grow things, and you fix things. So we build a lot of things, like any facility that we need, a milk house or milk parlor, butcher shop. We got to build it, right? Because you can't really, I suppose you could, but contractors are very expensive, and that would set us back by paying somebody else to do it. Now, I got a friend, Matt Koldak, that comes and helps once in a while. Hasn't this year yet, but I'm sure we will see him. And he helps, he knows how to build. He's a real live builder. I wonder if you can hear that. It's really coming down. but we have to do the work ourselves. And so we do a lot of carpentry, we do a lot of concrete work, we do excavation work, so we do a lot of digging. And it's part of the job. And everything doesn't always get totally completed because we have to operate it, right? So for example, we had to build out our milk parlor last year, and I had a rough idea of how it should be, but I didn't know exactly how it should be because we're modeling the way this farm was built in 1900 and how they did it then, right? Now they had electricity. It wasn't, in the Stone Age. They weren't fighting Indians off or anything in 1900. They didn't have electricity here in 1900. They got it here in 1943 is when they got it here. But they did have a generator it was in the basement here. It was called the Delco. And I think that's what they used to milk later on. But I think at first they were milking by hand, probably in the early days. And so to build, for example, to build out that milk parlor, we could only see what was left there. And the only thing really that was left was a concrete floor that was all broken up. It had a gutter in it, and then there was a sill. And the sill was where they would put the cattle's feed, and the cows come in, and that's where they would milk them. And it was more like a trough. But all that was left was a concrete sill. And so we kind of figured that, well, this is where they had the stanchions and da-da-da-da-da. And so I built it out the best I could. And it came out really nice and works well. But as soon as it was built and functional, we had to use it because the cows still need to be milked. And at the time, we had a single milk stanchion, and we were bringing them in one at a time instead of bringing 5 in at a time. So now we have the ability to open a door, in they come. But when it was first built, there was no door to open. So when they would come in, we would have to just hang a chain across it and, hope that they would stay out when they were supposed to stay out. And after a while, that didn't work out. So we had to build the door. And that took time. And the door had to be such, not a swinging door. It had to be a sliding door to save space. And also, stuff gets in front of it, and a swinging door, you're working to keep it clear. So at first we didn't have a door, but we had to milk the cows anyway. And so we did. But then when the cows left for the day, it was like, okay, now we got to build, the walls in here. There was no walls. The wind was just whistling through it. So we got that done, and then we had to put the water tank in, and we had to get the water run to the tank, which took time and expertise, I guess. I got a little bit of plumbing experience. I'm pretty good at it now, running PEX tubing or PVC tubing, or I can even do copper lines if I have to. I really don't do copper much or at all. I don't think I do. Now that I have PEX and I have it figured out, it is really slick stuff. And but the point I'm making is I would personally stress when something wasn't complete. And then when the end of day came, I'd come into the house and I'd see, well, that ceiling's not done. And that ceiling really bothers me. And I know it bothers my wife too. And so it would cause stress. And I'm trying to de-stress my life, right? And so I'm making lists of all the little things that stress me out. And that ceiling was one of them. And there was other things. There's always things that need to be done. light fixtures that aren't complete, and the switch is broke, so we're just untwisting the light bulb. It's been like that for 5 years. And other things like this room. Even this room didn't even exist. There was holes in the roof, and water poured through onto the concrete floor in here. And now we have a floor in here, this nice ceiling. The roof is fixed and sheds water, and things get better. But the walls weren't even painted in here, and we were using this for the office to do this in here. And things take time, and a lot of times I think that for me to do things, I didn't want to do it half baked. I wanted to do it right. So in order to do it right, we have to have everything lined up. And then even when I thought I had everything lined up, I would do it and I'd realize, I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have the money to get these doors. So there's not going to be any doors for a while. This room, actually, we had no doors on here for a while. These doors cost quite a bit of money, actually. They're like almost $400 now to get these doors, with the windows in them. But if you're going to heat it, you got to have doors. You just have to. And so it would have been probably 3 weeks ago now. We were getting ready to do the floor in the milk house. Now, the milk house is adjacent to the milk parlor. The milk parlor is where the cows come in and we milk them. And the milk house is adjacent to it. And the concrete was all broken up in there when we got here. And we hauled a bunch of it out. And we had to kind of smooth it out and get it ready for pouring a concrete floor in it. But before we could do that, we had to have the drains in. Before we could do that, we had to have a place for the drains to drain to. So it was a process of, okay, let's get the tank in first. No, I think we put the drain lines in first. Yeah, we put the drain lines in. And then we put the tank in. And when the drain lines were in, and we knew that if we poured water down the drain, it would go to the tank, then we covered the hole up that the drain lines were in, secured that. And it took time. And all the while, we had an open trench there where we had to put boards across it. So when our customers came for chicken processing, that they wouldn't fall in, But we did it. We got it operational. And now the floor has been poured in there. And the day that we poured that floor, the day that we did that, I made a really good discovery. So the truck was coming at 2:00 in the afternoon. So we were scrambling to get it ready for when the truck came. And, he's going to drop the concrete, and we have to be there to smooth it all out and, get it ready. Because once you pour it, you got to live with it. However it lands, that's what you got to live with. And as I was floating the floor, I call it floating it, it wasn't coming out great. And it's hardening, and we're still trying to move things around and get people in position where they can rake the concrete out. And so I was on the bull float. It's called the bull float, that you push it out, you pull it in, and you're smoothing it. And you're also trying to make a contour so that the water will run to the drain. And guys that can do it are guys that been, and I suppose I could have hired someone to do it, a contractor to come do it, but I kind of looked at that, and the concrete was going to be $1,000, and the contractor to even come out and do it, he would have said, no, we have to prep that floor way better than it is. And it probably would have run into a couple $1,000s to do it. And we didn't have it. But we needed the floor because we wanted to start building out the milk house so it would be ready for this coming winter. We planned to be fully operational in there this winter. And so there was just a lot of stress right before the truck came. We're eating lunch and the truck comes a half hour early even. And it's like, oh man, this is stress. And then it came on a Tuesday and my kids had to leave for jujitsu. So then it was just me doing it. Now I'm getting stressed out. And it's not like anybody knows. I'm not throwing things. I'm not yelling or anything like that. There was a time, but not this time. But internally, I'm stressing. And I'm thinking, people are going to see this floor. This has to be good. But at some point in that whole process, I thought, wait a minute. This floor was not even close to as good as I'm going to get it when we started, or when it was poured originally in like 1905. Because back then, when they did concrete, they didn't have like these vibrating floats and all this other stuff to make it just perfect. They didn't have that. So they just made it the best they could with a trowel, and that was as good as it got. And I started to remember, excuse me. I started to remember when I was a kid and walking to school, there would be workmen, and I suppose they worked for the town, and they would be out there and they'd have a pile of sand and bags of concrete, and they'd have a cement mixer. And as we're walking to school, they would make us walk around the work area, right? But then we were walking home, the sidewalk was done. It was dry and we could walk over it. And then the next day we would be walking on it again up to the point where they were doing their next, and they did it in, as I remember, like 4x4 sections. And they would pour one and then they would skip one and then pour another and then skip one. And then the next day they would pour in between. And all they did was take a trowel and trowel it off. And it was rough, but it looked good, as I remember. It's still there. It's still there in Shrewsbury. I'm sure it's still there. And it was good. And that was as good as it needed to be. So to kind of get a little perspective here, my son, who's building a house, he had to pour concrete on the first floor of his barn dominium that he's building. And he didn't really get my input on it, but he hired a guy, somebody that we know from here, to do the concrete work, because he was like, oh no, I can't do this, you know. But I think his mindset was, this is a house. This has to be done right. I'm sure that's what he was thinking, because I would have been thinking the same thing. And there's more to it in a house. There's way more drains and water lines coming in, and they're doing a heated floor and stuff. So there's way more to it than what I was doing, for sure. But he hired this guy to do this, and I think he paid him like $4,000 to do the finished concrete work. And when I went over there to see it, I said, wow, really good job, really nice. And as we were walking around looking at it, my son pointed out an imperfection. He says, yeah, I don't know about this. But it was nothing more than a little swirl, you know, that was not like a mirror. Everything else was really good, really smooth. And I thought, how perfect do we need to be? So when I heard him say that and stuff, it kind of started to process in my mind. And I had that feeling when we were pouring the milk house that, you know, hey, I'm going to be criticized for this. Dad's being cheap and he's just doing a ham and egger type job. But all of a sudden something clicked, And I said, no, it doesn't make sense to stress over getting this perfect, because tomorrow, when this is dry, we are going to start framing it in, whether it is perfect or not, And I really am not concerned with somebody that comes here and we're showing around, say, whoa, you got a line in your concrete here. It looks like you didn't really you didn't hire contractors to do this. And so I thought about, like, if you're a concrete contractor, your customer is expecting perfection, right? Because they're paying you a lot of money to do it. So you're striving for perfection. Great. But as homesteaders, we need something that is going to function. And I'm not advocating for form over function. We've talked about that before. Form over function, or function over form. I'm not really advocating for it. Well, maybe I am. Function over form. Like, I don't want something to be done halfway and not functional because we just didn't take the time to do it right. I want things to be functional and show a level of pride in the work. But I think you have to balance that. And if it is not balanced, then a lot of times you think, well, I can't do this. I have to hire a professional to do it. And that right there, I think, holds people back from getting as much done as they could do and have a functional facility or process center or whatever it is that you're going to build, chicken house, chicken tractors, whatever it is that you're going to build, even within the house, like in this house right here. Yeah, there's a lot of imperfections in this room. And I didn't do, I did as good as I could, but a contractor would have definitely, somebody that does this, professional carpentry contractor, they would probably have done a better job than I did. But it's all holding up. It holds the heat. We heat this, it's comfortable, and we're on to the next thing. Like, I do this show in this room. That's one of the things that happens in this room, like every week. And it doesn't really matter that, well, over there, you've missed a spot. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have any bearing on the function of this room. This is actually called the office. It's off the back of the house. And if you go through this door here, it just goes out to the pool. The pool area is just a little porch there that used to be part of this room, but we brought the wall in a little bit, and now there's just a little like patio there where you can sit, and that's where you have breakfast in the morning. And then the pool is 6 feet from that, so if the kids are swimming, me and mom can sit there and watch them swim, or whatever we're going to do. So we use this for the office. Jill does the books in here and tracks everything and does all the computer work and stuff. So she spends a lot of time in here. But she finds it to be very comfortable. It's open. It's well lit. And I've never heard her complain, but she doesn't complain very much about anything. But I think she's happy with it. I do. And I'm happy with it. Okay. I haven't really paid attention to the chat here. Okay, we got Rewilder Life. Rachel J. And she's off to bed. She goes to bed early. I can't go to bed when it's still light out. Can you imagine that? So she listens to this during the day. Rachel Jameson, she's a good friend of ours. So I think that that's something to think about. I know in the past, if I was going to paint a car, for instance, I'll be mixing the paint up, but part of me is saying, you really should sand that down one more time. And like the last vehicle that I painted here was probably the 2-ton, and that was 10 years ago, and it needs to be painted again. Actually, there's some rust has come through, but it doesn't really matter all that much because the paint that I'm putting on it is for corrosion control. It's just to keep it from rusting, So when I'm going to use that truck, the dump truck, when I'm going to use it, am I thinking, well, I can't use this because the paint's getting a little, blemished over here. Yeah, Jill's asking, where are you all listening in from? Ooh, Jill put a post up today about why people drink raw milk, why people want to drink raw milk. And there was like, when I looked at it, there was 50 comments in there. And there was only one guy that took the time to say, I grew up on a dairy farm and I wouldn't touch raw milk. And then people hammered this guy. Like, yeah, if I lived on a big dairy farm, I wouldn't touch the milk either because they get gross after a while. And yeah, the milk does have to be cooked to make it safe. But on a dairy like ours, where we're going to milk 5 cows or maybe 10, we can take the time to, clean and make sure that the milk is handled safely and hygienically so that we don't have to cook the milk, in order for it to be safe. Anyway, there was a lot of discussion about raw milk. There's a lot of discussion about raw milk these days. I think that it's kind of toned down a little bit because the news cycle has kind of been taken over a little bit. Yeah, it was Sunday on Tribe Day when the president was shot, or President Trump was shot. And since then, all hell has broken loose, and who knows where it's going from there. But I don't really need to talk about that because everybody's got their things, but it has created a lot of chaos in the country. But it's stolen the news cycle away from the raw milk siege, that's here in Michigan. I think our governor is more concerned with hoping that she gets to be the vice president or something. Our governor here in the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, her name was on the short list of a vice presidential pick from old Kamala, right? So anyway, that's kind of funny. But I do think in the light of just everything that's been happening since we started this show, it's just more reason to put the pedal to the metal when you're considering becoming more self-sufficient or self-sufficient, totally self-sufficient. I wouldn't say that we are totally self-sufficient. We don't produce salt. We don't produce coffee. We don't produce Band-Aids, but I think we could do without Band-Aids. I don't know why that came to my mind. I was just thinking of the things that's in the medicine cabinet, but we really don't do any medicine other than like aspirin, and I think we could probably do a workaround on that with willow bark, right? I haven't tried it yet, but I'm sure somebody has. But we're quite self-sufficient here, and that is because we just do the thing, So you may be getting a mixed message from me. I'm not saying that lack of perfectionism has held me back, or perfectionism has held me back, but it has caused stress. It has caused stress. Like, I want stuff finished and done right. And, a lot of times I have plans to finish and they just get pushed off for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And like even today, getting the hay in, I still had 10 bales sitting out there and we got torrential rain, but 55 of them were in. 55 we're in. And so that is a good jag of hay for, my next, when we start feeding hay again, which will be, somewhere around December. And I got to have hay to get through the winter to spring, to when the grass starts to grow again. And I will be cutting more. I won't be tomorrow because everything's going to be wet, but I will start up again probably after Sam goes back to the Air Force. I'm taking him back on Friday, and then we have the class on Saturday, so that's not going to work. Probably won't start cutting hay on Sunday, but probably next Monday I'll probably start hitting it again. And I would like to have 110 in, and then I will be pretty safe, and then I will go a little further than that. Just to be on the safe side. And that's kind of like money in the bank for me, because if I can feed my cows and then I can sell the milk, and who knows, there may come a financial collapse too. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it, and I've been hearing it for a long time. I hear a lot of things, but I just wait and see what unfolds. But I do think that could be a possibility, because it seems like there are entities out there that are trying to create chaos, like the forces of chaos, and then we're relying on Maxwell Smart to get things fixed. And I'm just kind of watching this whole show go on, and it is just like a clown show. I'm sure you know some of what I'm talking about, like with the assassination attempt, and now we haven't seen old President Biden in like 6 days, and they're not sure if he's kicked the bucket or not. And if he has, well, Kamala's got some answering to do, because she said she talked to him on the phone and things like that. So I don't know. Maybe she's not even going to be the nominee. Who knows? But I kind of, it's funny that we have seen people with signs out on their lawns for Biden Harris. Well, what are they going to do now? They're going to have to get new signs. So let's say you made a donation to the campaign, got your sign, but now it's going to be, who knows? Like, are you going to have to, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not that too wrapped around the axle about it. I would like to see President Trump reelected, because he had a better handle on things. Gasoline was cheaper, and the economy was better. More people were working, and things just seemed a little bit more settled. The libs were freaked out, but it didn't really amount to much. They just freaked out, but it didn't mean anything. Okay, so that's my thing. I think it's something to think about. You're going to want to balance out your perfection, your form over your function over form. You don't want to do a crummy job that you're going to have to do over, but don't get hung up, or I'm not going to get hung up on perfection anymore. I'm not going to get hung up on it. Like that floor, it's all covered with sawdust now. You can't even see the imperfections in it, because we're in there framing right now. And making good progress in there too. I'm really excited about that project. But we're not going to be able to bear down on that until hay is completely done. And even then, we've got a couple things that are priority jobs over that, because as it is right now, we're using the kitchen in the old butcher shop as our milk processing. So we've got a place to do it. It's just not right next to the milk parlor, which is going to be a whole lot more convenient, and there's more space, and there will be nothing in there but milk stuff. So we're not sharing a space with, like, canning and sausage stuffing and all the other stuff that gets done in the outdoor kitchen. So that'll be a lot better. It'll be a lot more convenient. And there's certain things that we want to do in there that are going to make it even more convenient, fortifying our position, as I say. I'm going to put a dishwasher in there so that we can wash the jars for the milk. I'm looking for a milk cooler to go in there, possibly. I might do that. I have a friend that's got one that might be coming available, and it's Copperhead Farm. They said it was a game changer. Just me coming from California. McKenna Hicks had a great time at Tribe Day. This is Andrew. Did concrete with my dad for 16 to 18, from 16 to 18, from 6 to 18, and doing work for customers is way different from farm use. As long as it holds and does its job, it's good. Yep, that's me. And I'm not going to get held back anymore. Well, it wasn't holding me back, but it was causing stress. It's like, I'm not ready. And once the job is done, I don't even look at it again. I don't say, whoa, what a nice job I did on this. I really don't. I'm gonna have to take this. This is inconvenient, but this is my son calling. He's got my other two sons with him. So hold on. Hey, I'm in the middle of the show right now. Is this important?
Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm just looking to get a hold of mom. I can't get a hold of her on the phone, but I'll try her again.
Okay. Mom's listening to the show, so okay, she'll get her phone. She'll get the message. All right, bye. Sorry about that, but Sam's got my other two kids with him. They went to jiu-jitsu tonight to do the knockdown, drag out type thing, and I just thought maybe he had an emergency or something. So fishing today. I'm sure you want to hear about that. Caught 12 really nice fish, but there was one person in the boat that got skunked. Was using the same bait, pretty much the same line, casting in the same area, using the same technique, pulling it in, but I didn't catch one fish. I didn't even get a bite, right? And after a while, I was like, well, at least my hands won't smell fishy. So, all right. I do have some other things that I could talk to you about. I feel like it's my responsibility to give you an update on the Nourish Co-op deal. Those were the girls that were forced to dispose of $92,000 worth of raw milk products, and it was a real tragedy that happened. But the more we look at this, the more we realize that did not have to happen. It did not have to happen. And so I think that it's imperative that we continue to talk about this, because every day people are being faced with decisions how they're going to operate. So I can just tell you how we operate here, and we've operated successfully now for probably let's see, I probably should have a date on this. 14, yeah, since 2014. So this is what, 2024. So 10 years. And in 14, we had just finished up with our lawsuit with the state over farm things, state officials saying that we could no longer possess our possessions because they said so. And we called them on it, and it wound up in a lawsuit, and we prevailed. And then they were kind of butthurt over that. That's a good word, isn't it? Butthurt. And so they decided that because I was licensed, I had a license with them, which was actually an agreement. It was a contract with them for our butcher shop. It was a food processing facility is what it was called. And we paid on that for 14 years. We paid every year dutifully. Jill wrote checks to them for nothing. Like, they never came and checked anything. And we would get a little piece of paper that said, license to operate a food processing facility, and it said display proudly, and I never did. I never displayed it proudly, and it wasn't because I thought it was a hoax or stupid. I just never got around to it, putting it in a frame and hanging it up. I have a license from the state of Michigan. I never did it. Not that that has anything to do with what I'm about to tell you, but I entered into that contract with them voluntarily, right? I came here from the military and we wanted to open up a butcher shop. And so I went to them and I said, what do I need to do? And they were like, oh, okay. So they came right out, gave me a list of things that I needed to do on the facility, all these things. And then I had an inspection date and they signed me off. I had my 3-compartment sink, had my hand washing sink. I had washable walls. I had a washable floor. I had functioning drains, all these things, screens on the windows, lights, all these things that they said that you have to have in order to run something like that, which you would do anyway. Probably not the hand washing sink. I thought that was a little stupid. A separate sink just to wash your hands in. I think that's stupid. Still think it's stupid. As soon as the inspection was done, we jerked it off the wall and it's still out at the junk pile. But we had it anyway, passed the inspection. And then for 14 years, we got another piece of paper and we operated our shop. And it gave us the ability to sell to restaurants, which are also under contract with the health department. And their contract says that they can only buy from licensed processing facilities, which I was. So it's sort of a racket, right? So when we finished up our lawsuit and we won, then Department of Agriculture said, okay, it's time for us to get payback against you. And so now they want to do inspections on our facility. And the first time they said they wanted to, I was not in a good mood. And I said, not today. And then I was shown in my agreement with them, my license, that I had agreed to a no notice inspection. I had agreed to that. That was in the fine print. And then it became an issue where they wanted to inspect when they wanted to inspect. And my fur kind of came up. And if I was in the middle of doing something else, I wasn't going to stop what I was doing so I could have these weenies walk through and make a list of all the things that are wrong because they could. And I knew that that's what they were going to do. And so I held them off. And then they got butthurt over it. And they got an order from a judge, an administrative warrant. And, I did not want to work with them because they were being vindictive. And I knew that I couldn't win because they could always find one thing or another. And then they would always be nipping at my heels from that point on because their goal was to shut us down. That was their goal. And if I allow them to have access to me, eventually they'll shut me down. Eventually they'll find something. And once they've shut you down, then you're on kind of a list of, like a horrible person and don't do business with this guy. And so we voluntarily surrendered our license and said, no, thank you. We don't want it anymore. But when we did that, we knew that our restaurant accounts were going to be gone. But by the time we had finished up our lawsuit, the Department of Agriculture had put pressure on all of our customers to not buy from us. Yes, they did. They would do things. They would show up and inspect their facilities and say, oh, you buy from Baker's Green Acres. Huh. Is this, are you sure this is what you want to do? They really were difficult, and we lost customers. I lost a really good restaurant in Cadillac that I did business with for a long time. They were actually friends of ours, but they succumbed to the pressure of the Department of Ag, right? A lot of people can't take it. They just see the official car and the white coat and the clipboard, and they think, oh, they're going to shut me down, right? Well, what happened after we got rid of our license? We had said we're not going to do business with restaurants anymore anyway, because we had found that it's not profitable, because you have to sell to a restaurant at wholesale and then they bump the price up to make their margin. So we didn't really want to do that, because we were discounting the work that we put into our products just so we could sell to these restaurants. And the restaurant said, well, we can buy from like Cisco and Food Service of America and all the the food suppliers. Their food is really cheap, but we really can't produce it that cheaply. We don't have the same tax advantages or subsidization from the government that they do. And so we couldn't really compete. And so we were lowering our prices so we could compete. And it was really a bad idea, and it's only now that I look at it and I say, I would never do that again. If some restaurant wants to buy from me, let's say some restaurant that's really high end and wants good, clean food came to me right now and said, well, how much for, these products? I would say, you see the prices on them, that's what it is. And they say, well, that's way more than Cisco. And I'd say, then buy from Cisco, but if you want good food, food that's actually got flavor to it and was raised humanely and all that stuff, then this is what it costs. Bottom line, this is what it costs. You don't want it? Don't buy it. I don't have time for you. And we were delivering to these restaurants. And we found out that was really a bad deal. So by the time we surrendered our license, we didn't have a lot of restaurants anyway. And we were basically supplying a couple restaurants that we become friends with, and they were trying to support us, but, it had just kind of died on the vine. And so we had made the decision that we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to maybe look at doing something else. Maybe we don't want to farm anymore. Maybe we'd like to do something else. Maybe get that shrimping boat I keep talking about. But we kept farming with what we had, because we had to maintain what we had. We had to continue to feed the animals that we had, and then we were slaughtering for ourselves. And what we realized, without that license, without that contract, Department of Agriculture, they went away. I never heard from them again. Never, not a peep from them. So the things that we do here are things that they would say are totally rogue, is what they would call. Like, we're just operating without any bounds. That's what they would say. We're not licensed. So they claim to provide oversight on the farms that are licensed. They claim that, but they never actually come to the farm. They just send you this certificate in the mail, right? And you send them a check, a fat check too. So the whole thing didn't make sense. Sort of like this assassination attempt doesn't make sense. No sense at all, but we just kept doing it, right? But when the license was gone, the agreement was over, I didn't need a hand washing sink in my butcher shop anymore, because it's stupid, right? I could do things that made sense and not what these food inspectors or bureaucrats from the Department of Agriculture, what they thought made sense, which is crazy to me that we ever listened to them at all. Some of the garbage that came out of their mouths. I'll give you an example. And I'm trying to make a point here, so stay with me. One time the inspector came here because somebody else wanted to license through our shop. So she was here, and she was a mess. She was a total mess. The inside of her car looked like somebody dumped a trash can inside of it. Literally, like McDonald's wrappers and just so much junk in that car. And it was a state-owned car with a state logo on the side. But anyway, she was a mess. But when she was here licensing someone else so they could process their chickens in our facility and then sell them, we thought that that was a good idea to do that for a while. She saw a chair that was sitting in the shop that we would use to sit on while you were filling out paperwork, billing or whatever. And the chair had at one time been painted purple by one of my kids. One of my kids painted it purple, and it looked terrible. But you could sit on it, and it was solid, and the inspector lady didn't like it. This has got to go. And she was a mess. She was an absolute mess. So I wasn't going to fight her on that. I said, okay. I knew I'd never see her again anyway, And so I said, okay. And she said, I need you to send me a picture of this room without that chair in the room. I am not kidding. That's what she said. And I said, okay, I can do that. But this is before smartphones. So I didn't really have a way to do it. So we were going to have to figure out a way to do it over the computer or something. I didn't know. And I never actually did it. I called her and I said, I got rid of that. And I didn't. We still have it someplace. But so that's what it's like partnering with them. And if you get in a licensing agreement with the Department of Agriculture, specifically for farms, there's all kinds of licenses that they would love you to have, like a warehouse license and things like that. If you do that, then they have access onto your property. If you don't do that, they have no access onto your property. So their rules might state that the sale of raw milk is verboten, right? But you're not playing by their rules because you're not doing business with them. If you are doing business with them, you actually work for them because they have the final say. And we had a couple things happen where there was a labeling issue. There was a number that was supposed to be on our label that we didn't have on there because our label maker didn't get programmed with that number sequence in it. It was just an oversight. And they could have said that we need to take all those items off of the shelves in the stores that we'd already sold them to. They could have said that. And in one store, they did. Down in Kalamazoo, there was a store, and they took all. I just brought a whole big load of chicken down to the store in Kalamazoo, and they caught it down there, and they put red tape around it. They put it all on a big floor cart, and they put red tape around it, and they said, well, this can't be sold because of the labeling issue. And there was like a couple $1,000s worth of chicken on there. And they said that, well, the employees can take it home and they can eat it. The employees at the store, they can take it home and eat it. But they wouldn't let me take it back to my house and me eat it. That was their rules. That was what the food inspector thought was a good fix on the situation. Well, I wasn't going to have that at all. And so I started making some phone calls, and I made a lot of noise because they can't just take your stuff, even though I did have a licensing agreement with them. They can't just do that. Well, that is pretty much what happened to Nourish Co-op. They were coerced into a licensing agreement with the state of Michigan. They were coerced into it. By who? The state of Indiana coerced them into it. A food inspector in Indiana. And so they did it. And it's horrible what happened, but they did. They got the licensing agreement. They paid the money for it. They did the inspection and everything. And then a month later, the state of Michigan swooped in because they could and condemned all of their raw milk products because they could. Was it justified? Absolutely not. Is it done? No, it's not over yet. It's not over. Those individuals are moving very quickly on this situation. The girls at Nourish Co-op, and they're taking the steps that they need to take to have no licensing agreement with the state of Michigan, right? And with no licensing agreement, there is no oversight. There is no access onto that private property, right? So the way I can explain this to you that will probably make sense, since we're talking about fishing, and this has to be talked about a lot so you start to understand it. Okay, so on our property, there are a couple of ponds, right? They're not very big, but they are ponds. At one time, we went to a hatchery and we bought some little fish. We just, on a day trip, we went and visited a hatchery. We bought these little fish. I bought some largemouth bass and some catfish. And it was the end of the season, and they had about 15 of each. And the guy sold them to me. He was a big fan of Baker's Green Acres. He gave me a great deal because that's all he had. We put them in a cooler. We brought them home. We put them in the ponds. They were sold to me legitimately from this hatchery. Now they become my property. The pond is on my property, private property. I put them in there. They are mine, just like the ducks that are on that are mine. Just like the pigs that are out in the field are mine. Private property. So if I want to fish in my pond, I don't need a license from the state of Michigan to fish on a private property. I do not need that. Why is that, you may ask? Well, who is it that comes and checks your license when you're fishing? It's the game warden, right? So you're out fishing, and the game warden comes and says, I need to check your license, sir, if you don't mind. Pain in the butt, right? And while he's there, he might check to see if you've got the proper flotation devices, and he might check to see if the registration on your boat is current. He might check to see if the trailer lights on your trailer work, and all those things, because he can write a lot of citations, and you can pay out a lot of money for a fishing trip. You can. It's sad. It's really sad, but that's kind of the way it is. But it's justified. I don't like it, but it's justified. On private property, they have no access onto private property. They cannot come on private property without what? An invitation or a warrant signed by a judge. And now that warrant would have to have something to do with something that is criminal. So for a DNR officer to come onto my property with a warrant, it would be something like they have evidence that, let's say that I'm killing deer, a lot of deer, and I'm hanging them up, and then I'm selling those deer to people from downstate that just want to make believe that they came and hunted, but they got to take something home to show their wife to, say, well, I wasn't partying, I was actually deer hunting, and here's the deer. And I know I say that because I knew of an operation like that. I didn't know the people, but I knew that they had actually gone to jail over that, right? Because they were shooting elk and bear and mountain lions, and they had a massive locker full of that. And I know that they went to jail. I didn't know the guys personally. And that is illegal. That's against the law. That I don't like that. I don't like them doing that. But like the fish in my pond belong to me. I can catch them and eat them, and I don't need an agreement with the state of Michigan to do that. However, where I went fishing today was a public lake. It's public. So the Department of Natural Resources has jurisdiction on that public property. And they require that you have a license. And when you get the license, there's a little booklet that you get that you're supposed to look at. And you can fish between these hours, and the fish have to be this big, and don't take this species, or you can't fish during this time of the year when they're spawning and all that stuff. I get it. It's probably a good thing. Probably. It's just that the game wardens are really jerks, a lot of them. And so like people don't even want to do it, because if you see them coming, you're getting a ticket. They'll write you a ticket for just about anything, So it's the same with a private farm. The animals that are here are private. The processes that are here are private, right? When I butcher a beef, it's my beef. It's my cow. If I want to butcher it, it's my prerogative to do that. I don't need oversight from some state agency. And some people think that, yeah, but if you're going to sell it, you do. Oh, is that right? Is that right? If I want to butcher a chicken and sell it to my neighbor, you're telling me I have to involve the state in that? That's not true. That's not true at all. But if you have a licensing agreement, you are submitting yourself to their oversight. So here's proof that you don't have to have a license to do what I'm doing. First of all, I've been doing it for 10 years and not a peep. And some people think, well, that's because it's you, like I'm such a arm wrestler, they wouldn't want to mess with me. No, that's not it. I do what I do because my processes are protected under the U.S. Constitution, the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Fifth Amendment says that my life, my liberty, and my property is protected under the due process of law. When you enter into a licensing agreement, that is contract. That is not law. Now, if you say, well, you got to have a license, why is that? Is it the law that you have to have a license? Is there a law saying that you have to have a license in order to process a chicken and sell it to your neighbor? I'd like to see it. It doesn't exist. I can tell you it doesn't exist. So if you want to operate in the public, like where I was operating today fishing, yeah, I had a fishing license in my pocket because that's like a $250 pinch. And if I get a $15 fishing license, everybody's happy. And there's no fighting with conservation officers who are jerks, right? I'll show them the $15 license. Oh, right? Now, he might write me up for something else. I'm sure they would find something. But it won't for that. So if you want to run your farm and operate in the public, like you're going to sell your products to a restaurant who is also under contract with the health department, and some of them even the Department of Agriculture. Health department is like a local department ag. So you have local health department, you have state, which is Department of Ag, and then you have federal, which is U.S. Department of Ag, right? And they They would like us all to be under contract with them so they have the final say on our food production. That's what they would like. People get in those contracts for various reasons. Sometimes if you're going to take a loan from the USDA, they're not going to let you operate in the private. They're going to say the requirements are on this loan is that you're operating in the public and you need to be licensed. Let's say you're going to milk cows. Let's say I went to the USDA and I said, I'd like to have a big grant in order to milk cows. They'll say, oh, grade A, right? No. I'm just going to do herd shares. I'm going to sell raw milk. They'd say, we're not giving you nothing. Because they can't control that, right? And their goal is to expand their reach and expand their control, right? So they can hire more people, they can get more tax money, and they can get another summer home, you know? But I'm not interested in that. I don't want to sell to restaurants. I don't even do farmers markets because farmers markets are the same. They're on county property generally, and they're subject to oversight by the Department of Agriculture. And if you have stuff there, let's say you have hamburger there, they're going to say, you don't have a warehouse license. So how do we know that your freezers are cold? You got to have a license from us so we know your freezers are cold. That's what they'll say. They'll come out one time at your freezer, yep, and then you'll never see them again so long as you pay them money every year after that. But you're not going to be at that farmer's market unless you have a license. You're just not going to. Now, if you're doing vegetables, something like that, it doesn't require that. But meat does. And I know people would say here, if they want to take the side of, the machine, they'd say, well, it's for food safety. Yeah. Like I'm going to let the stuff thaw and sit in the sun all week long and then freeze it right before I take it to the farmer's market. That's so stupid. Your goal is to provide people with a good quality product. You're not going to sell them something that's adulterated that way. I mean, so they treat you like children. They don't trust you at all. They want to look over your shoulder, but not really. So why would you want to do business with them? So what the Nourish is doing right now is they're getting out of their contract, their warehousing contract. And as soon as they do, well, it's raining out there now. As soon as they're out of that contract, there becomes a gap between the road and private property that is protected by the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Those people cannot come on this property or Nourish's property without an invitation, which should be a fool to give them invitation, or a warrant, but that requires criminal activity. So what does Nourish Co-op do? They procure things from farms like mine, and then they do the marketing to families all over the place, and they resell it. They mark it up a little bit to cover their cost and to cover their profit margin. They're doing a good thing. They're doing a great thing because they're getting good quality food from local farms to the people who want it. And farmers don't always have the time to do that. Or they never have the time to do that. We have worked, we're further along than most farms, where we actually have a storeroom where our products that are finished go in the store. The milk goes in the store, so our customers can come in, go into the storeroom, take what they want, and go. And then they can pay however they pay, online, leave a check, leave money, whatever, however they pay. Now, our customers are people that we know, and they have access to our farm because we have invited them on. But people that we don't know have to check with us first, and they have to say, we'd like to be part of your farm, like to, be part of this. And we check them out. If we feel as though it's going to be a good fit with us, then we will bring them on. If it's not a good fit, then we don't invite them on. We just say, no, we're full and we want you. and then you might be saying, well, do you just not let certain people, like, I don't know, Irish people come on? I'll just say Irish because I'm Irish, right? I don't want to call anybody out or call anybody's gender out or anything like that. No, we would not do that. But we would, if somebody wants to say, oh, well, could I see the data for the testing criteria they do on this meat, eggs, and milk? We would say, no. Yeah, the only data here is you can look at my children. If you want your children to look like my children, then feed them this stuff. But they eat it, I eat it, she eats it, and we're doing okay. We're doing okay. That's the extent of it. I don't send anything. That's so stupid anyway. Because let's say I butcher a beef and we send in some hamburger to be tested. Well, what about the next beef and the next one after that? If I get some sort of data, it doesn't fit every animal that's butchered in our shop. Or you send in a sample of milk. Well, we milk every day, and there's 5 different cows. Their milk is going to be different. We don't, we just, if it, that's why you have a nose above your mouth. If something doesn't smell right, don't eat it. So anyway, that's where Nourish is at. And that's where I am at as far as licensing goes. I have no agreements with any so-called authority. And you may be thinking that, well, they could get a warrant. No, we've covered that. I'm not doing anything criminal. If a law enforcement officer, and if I was, okay, so let's say you're doing something criminal, all right? Let's say you're, one of my customers comes here and they see that I've got 10 deer hanging up in the cooler, for instance. And they say, oh, that ain't right. I'm turning him in. Would they turn me in to the Department of Agriculture if I've broken a law? A law. No. They would turn me into law enforcement. Like the Sheriff's Department or the State Police or even the DNR, they're law enforcement officers. And then they would have evidence that I'm doing something illegal. And they would take that evidence to a judge, and they'd have to convince that judge, who's an elected official, and they're really liking their job because they make their mortgage, their car payments. That judge needs his job. They're not just rich people that decide to be judges just for fun. And that judge would say, you better be telling me the truth here, Junior. That guy better have 10 deer hanging up in his cooler. Oh, yeah, Judge, he does. I'm sure he does. And a law enforcement officer is not going to make a claim to a judge unless he's got good evidence. Why is that? Well, let's say he screws the judge by telling the judge, yeah, he's got 10 deer hanging up in there. I'm sure of it. And then they come here and they can't find him. Well, that homeowner or business owner might go after that judge. If nothing else, he will tell everybody else in the community that judge issued a warrant against me, a false warrant, suspended my Fourth Amendment rights that have been paid for by the blood of American servicemen over nothing. Do you think that judge will get elected? Might, but might not. I'm thinking might not. I'm thinking might not. So your Fourth Amendment is very, effective in protecting you from being harassed by people from the Department of Agriculture. And that is all you get from them, harassment, because they are not authorized to arrest you. They can't arrest you. They can't fine you. They can't. They don't have that authority. They actually have no authority on private property except what's in the contract that you've made with them. Contract, no authority. It's that simple. It is that simple. If you have a contract with them, figure your way out of it. If you're a grade A person, you have a contract with them. And you can't get out of that because you're not going to be grade A anymore, so you'll never sell to your grade A customers. So once you're in it, you can work yourself in a corner that's really impossible to get out of. And that's what they want. They want that hold on the farms. So I got another example to give you here. That's not too late. Give me a thumbs up here if I'm entertaining you. I want to do more than entertain you. I want to empower you. I want to give you the information that you need. So here's anecdotal evidence of what I'm telling you. Back in 2010, a lot of you have heard this story before, but Department of Agriculture, along with their buds at the Department of Natural Resources and Department of Attorney General, issued what they called the declaratory ruling. And what this was they said that we have a problem in the state of Michigan. We've got a problem. And the problem was feral swine, pigs who have been released into the environment or escaped, and then they're breeding like rabbits, and they're everywhere, right? And they're doing all kinds of things, killing baby deer and ducks, and, they're harmful to humans. They carry disease, all that. They made that claim, and they said, if you have pigs with these characteristics, you have to get rid of them. And they came out with a list of 9 characteristics. And I am not kidding you when I tell you the characteristics were brown pigs, pigs with curly tails, pigs with straight tails, pigs with floppy ears, pigs with distinct skeletal structure. Not kidding. And the 9th characteristic was pigs with characteristics not currently known to the scientific community. They think we're dumb. We are dumb. We just went through COVID-19 where they said, yeah, you could have it and not even know. You could be sick on death's door and you don't even know. It's called asymptomatic. Trust the science, they said. And look at how many people did. So we are pretty easy fooled because we're good people, right? We're easily fooled. We trust our government. We trust the Secret Service. We trust the FBI. Not so much anymore. And it's not our fault. It's their fault, right? So anyway, what was my point on that? The state wanted us to depopulate our animals. They said you have to destroy your own animals and you can never have them again. And many farms did. They went out and shot. One guy north of me shot 60 animals. And it crossed my mind a couple times too, because you're locking horns with the state, the attorney general. They send you these wicked letters making threats. It crossed my mind. But what their goal was, and they tipped their hand at one point. They said, well, maybe you could keep your animals, but only if it was done under license. And I didn't really realize at the time, but what they were actually wanting us to do was say, yeah, we can do this process, but you have to have oversight from us, from the state or from the Department of Agriculture. And what they would do is they would have access to your farm to say, oh, these fences, they're not up to spec, not up to what we think they need to be. And, pigs are pretty good at getting out. So, like, they were going to be very difficult. They wanted everything to be concrete, all the corner posts to be concrete and concrete footings. And then maybe you could get a license. And for somebody like me, I can't afford to do that, not and still profit and keep the farm going. So they were basically going to put you out of business. But those people who were able to stay in business, their pigs would all be on concrete, and who wants your pigs to be on concrete? It's a mess. You have door issues. You can't grow anything out there. It's not healthy for animals to live on concrete. And if we had capitulated to what they wanted, then they basically would have been in charge of our farm. So we said, no, we're not going to do it. And we took them to task on it. Long story short, we prevailed because of the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which states my life, my liberty, and my property, which is also my process, how I do stuff. That belongs to me. And you don't get to tell me what to do unless you got a law to back it up. So let's see if I can think of a law when it comes to raising animals. I really can't think of anything right now. But a law is something like let's say I want a babysitter, and I go to my neighbor and I grab their 14-year-old daughter by the hair and I drag her over to my house against her will, and I say, babysit my kids. You may say, well, that's your process. That's how I do it. That's my process. No, but wait a minute. Because if I take someone against their will, that's kidnapping. And that is against the law. So no go on that. And I'm good with that because I don't want somebody doing it to my 15-year-old daughter. Right? I'm good with that. Kidnapping against law, good. Let's say, and other things, I don't have to go through them all, but like rape, that's against the law. Murder, I'm really pissed off at some guy, so I'll just kill him. Well, you're going to go to prison because that's against the law. There was a law against murder. There is a law against rape, Well, I don't buy her flowers, so, whatever. I'm not going to go there. But laws are laws. When you enter into a contract, that's a contractual agreement. You say, I'll do this, and they say they'll do this. If you violate the contract, that is a civil dispute. And the best that they could do to you is haul you into a civil court. So in retrospect, like the girls at Nourish Co-op did not know this because the Department of Ag is not going to tell you. And they really like when they have a horror story like $92,000 worth of product was dumped in a dumpster. Pictures make it on the internet, and then people do write-ups on it. They love that stuff. Why? Because it scares people. Where let's say that the girls had said, no, we ain't doing it, and just continued selling. Well, they would have been violating a civil contract with the Department of Ag. So what could the Department of Ag do? They could summons them to court. And then a judge would say, hey, you said you'd do this, and you're not doing it. You need to do it. But they're not going to get thrown in jail. They're not going to get arrested. It's just the civil dispute would be settled. And if the judge says that you've got to do this and you don't do it, you are in contempt of that court, which you agreed to go into to have your dispute settled. You actually did agree to that when you entered into the contract. Because when you enter the contract and there's a dispute, the dispute is settled in the court. There are ways around that for sure. If you want to get into a contract with somebody and say, if there's a dispute in the contract, we are not going to settle it in the court. We're going to have a duel. Well, if that's in the contract, then that's cool. Or we're going to have an arm wrestle over it. Maybe not a duel, because that could result in untimely death, which could be construed as murder. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But no contract, no access, right? No contract, no access. Not get in a contract with them. I'm not saying don't get in any contracts, because like you're in a contract with your phone, let's say. If you're not willing to get in the contract, then you don't get a phone. Right? But that works both ways too. The contract says that we will provide you, AT&T will provide you phone service, and then you will pay the bill. And you say, cool, I'll do it. If you don't pay the bill, your phone gets turned off. If you don't get the service, then you don't pay your bill. And I guess if you don't get the service, he still wants you to pay the bill, you could settle it in a civil court. You could. I've not heard it happening, but I'm sure things like that have happened. So we need to keep talking about this, because I saw a meme today. Actually, Keith Sutton sent it to me a couple of days ago, and it's a cute looking, farmy looking girl, with her hair up, and she's got some milk in a jar like this, and she's drinking it. She got the milk mustache and everything. Nice, healthy looking girl. And then they go on to say, this is illegal. But then all these other products, Cheetos and all this other stuff, is fine. No, this is not illegal if this were a glass of milk. It is not a controlled substance. In some states, you have really weak laws that say the sale of raw milk to the end user is illegal. So that sale is what's illegal, but not the product itself. That is a very weak law, very weak. And let's say I'm selling milk to my neighbor, and he gets mad at me, and he wants to, I don't know, get back at me somehow. What are his options? What are his options? He could stand on, in Michigan, we have a law. It's a little puny little thing, but it's there, and it says the sale of raw milk to the end user is illegal. I'm not doing grade A milk, so I don't think it applies to me. However, their option would be to turn it in. That would be to so let's say he goes to the Department of Ag and he says, he sold me milk. He sold me milk. What are you going to do? Department of Ag only has one option, and that would be to refer it to law enforcement. So that would mean they'd have to go to my sheriff and make a complaint. And then the sheriff would have to say, are you kidding? Are you serious? Like, it doesn't happen. It does not happen. And they would have to have evidence that happened anyway. And the testimony of my neighbor, that's not real good evidence if he's pissed off at me, right? So I don't think they'd get anywhere with that. But we do things differently. We sell our milk under contract with our herd share members. So we have a contract with them. And in that contract, we state that any discrepancy amongst us will be settled amongst us. And it can be settled really easy. If you have a problem with that gallon of milk that I sold you, and you want to turn me into the sheriff's department for selling a gallon of raw milk, how about I just give you your money back? How about that? Would that be better? You just get your money back. And then you don't get any more milk. How would that be? $10 gallon of milk? Yeah. So I know people are kind of they're kind of bent out of shape about that thing with Nourish, but when we finally do interview Ashley, you will hear her say, no, this is totally her fault. She walked into the contract and she should have read the fine print. And so what we're trying to do is tell you, read the fine print if you're going to get in the contract. You better make sure that benefits you. You better make sure it does. I have not found a benefit in doing business with the Department of Ag. No benefit. Zero. Nothing. As a matter of fact, a contract with the Department of Agriculture is a liability for your homesteading operation. Homesteading doesn't necessarily have to be small. It could be a pretty good size operation and you could make a very good living off of it. But just because you're making money doesn't mean you have to contract with them. I don't know why people feel that way. I do. It's because you've been taught from a very young age that you are not free. When you're in elementary school, you are told if you want to speak, you got to raise your hand. If you want to go to the bathroom, you got to raise your hand. And somebody's got to give you permission to go. And I get that because you can't have a bunch of little kids just walking out of the room. But I think by the time I'm in high school, if I need to take a leak, I'm going. Or I'll sit here and wet my pants. And I won't clean it up because you can't make me. Yeah. But like with the processes that we do on the farm, it's nobody's business what we do, so long as it's within the law. Like, again, I'll go back to unlawful activity on a farm. Like, just because I'm a farm doesn't mean I can cook methamphetamine and it's private property and you can't. No, that is a controlled substance, highly controlled. You can't manufacture it. You can't possess it. You can't use it. You can't transport it. That's highly controlled. That's a definition of a highly controlled substance. Same thing. You can't make explosives, C4 explosives. You can't do that. That's controlled. There's a good reason for that. And many other things are controlled. And there's a good reason for it. Now, we kind of go around here a lot about we certify people in different processes. We're mocking that whole process. Like, somehow if you're certified by the state, that you must be a cut above, right? Because the certifiers at the state level, they're top-notch people, right? How absurd is that? How absurd. If you can't do nothing else and you got a college degree, there's a job for you working at the Department of Agriculture. We can fit you in someplace. We're always looking for good people, right? Give me a break. So just operate independently, operate what would be called in the private in lieu of operating in the public. And if anything requires you to be in the public, then pass on it, because there's plenty of market in the private. As a matter of fact, there's a better market in the private. The patrons of this farm, the farm members, you grow to care about them and love them after a while, and they love us too, because we're feeding their kids good quality food, and moms want their kids to have good quality food. We don't need a third party, some slob from the state, to say, yep, that's good. I come once a year and yep, that's good. We don't need that. We don't want that. And we're not doing anything wrong if we're on this side of a licensing agreement. That's not wrong. Just like fishing in my pond, my fish is not wrong. It's not a bad thing. They paint it as a bad thing because they're in the business of selling licenses and gaining control, right? So it's not like they're evil, but that's their shtick. You know, like if you hire a lawyer and then you catch them telling you a lie, don't take it personal. You know, they're in the business of shading the truth and coming out with an outcome that works. But we're completely outside of that system. And it's a good place to be. It's a friendly place to be. It's a profitable place to be. And I highly recommend it. You guys can do what you want with that. All right. Anna Hicks is still here. The Ghost says, this idea of judges being elected is a foreign concept to me as Canadian. How does this work? These guys have all been to law school, haven't they? Yeah. A judge, oh, the way it works here, I'm not sure how it works in the provinces, honestly. I really don't know how that happens. But here we have, in the state of Michigan, we have 83 counties. In every county, there is what's called the county seat. And that seat would be where the courthouse is. And usually that's where the sheriff's department is, and several other departments would be in that complex. So if it's a really small county, like my county, we only have 12,000 people. It's a small courthouse. I've been in there too much. And the judge was most likely a lawyer that worked within the system, the local system. So he would work in this county, maybe in a couple counties around, as either a lawyer for hire or a public defender, or either those two roles. And then they can move up the chain in the system, and they could be like the county attorney. So it's an attorney that's hired by the county to oversee contracts and things, you know, like if there's a dispute, the county attorneys from this county and this county, they can kind of hash it out and get things fixed. And then there's another position called the prosecutor. The prosecutor is an attorney that works for the county that, let's say, you're hanging up 10 deer in your cooler and you get popped, you get arrested. The police make a report, the sheriff's department make a report. This is what this guy was doing. Here's the laws that he broke. And then that report goes to the prosecutor. And the prosecutor might have 100 cases sitting on his desk that he's got to prosecute. Now, the people of the county want criminal things prosecuted. You know, the rapes, the murders, the assaults, the thefts, break-ins, destruction of private property. The people of the county want that stuff taken care of. We want those guys in jail. So the prosecutor is an elected official. He's elected. So if he goes before the people of the county and says, well, I got that son of a gun, Mark Baker, that was selling raw milk. I got that son of a gun. The people are going to be, is that what you did? You're out of here. They're not going to like that. They're not going to like that one bit. But if the guy is putting guys behind bars that are raping and murdering, human trafficking, it's bad. It's bad. Drugs destroy communities. They destroy people's lives, right? Those are the ones that need to be prosecuted. So even your 10 deer might make it to the prosecutor, and he'll be like, "I don't have time for this." Is the guy's in the jail right now? He'll send one of his minions down there and say, "We can take your birthday away, or you can plea a deal. Like if you want to plead guilty, we'll offer you, 30 days in jail, and then pay some sort of restitution." The guy might say, "Sure, fine," because if it does go to trial, he might do 10 years in jail. So he's likely to say, "I'll take the plea on that," because they don't have the time to go after everybody, jaywalkers and murderers. So they get the bad guys so that the prosecutor can say, "Here's my record. Here's how many people I put in jail, and here's the offenses. Oh, and this Mark Baker down here, we put him in jail too for selling rum." That will not go over well. And even if it isn't Mark Baker, if it's anybody, that will not go over well. The only people who would be thrilled with that are the people out of Lansing, our state capital, that work for the Department of Agriculture. So if the Department of Agriculture refers something to a prosecutor, they're going to be like, "We got no time for you." But conversely, okay, let's say that you've done as I have instructed you many times in the past. You preemptively draft a letter, right? You can write it on a crayon, with a crayon on a napkin if you want, and you address it to the director of the Department of Agriculture. And in the subject line, you say, "Notice of no trespass," and then a brief sentence that says, "This is to notify you, neither you nor anybody that works for you is welcome on my property, on my farm." And then here's the address. Certified mail goes to the Department of Agriculture. You get a copy that they received it. Plus you send them a copy. You keep the original, right? And you keep that. So you've told them that not only do we not have a contract with you, but I don't want to see your raggedy butts on my property ever, right? You're the landowner. You're protected under the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. You've trespassed them. You've given them preemptive notice that they're not welcome on your property. Let's say they come on anyway. That could be one of the highlights of your life right there, because you don't have to say anything to them except, "I'm going to need you to wait right here," because they'll come on. Let's say they want to, what they do is they come on farms and they say, "Do you mind if we look around?" And you're like, No, I'm not doing anything wrong. Yeah, you can look around. You're an idiot if you do. But then they're going to try and coerce you into a licensing agreement. Then they'll have access to you 24/7 if they have that license. But let's say you're too smart for that and you say, "No, I don't want it. Get off my property. Don't ever come back." Let's say they do come back. Oh, now there's a problem, because what do we have now? We have a letter saying that you're not to come on my property, but you have. That is criminal. That's no longer a licensing agreement. That is a criminal trespass. That's the same as if I go over to my neighbor's house at night and I just want to look around his property. I just want to look around. I'm not doing anything. I'm just looking around. I was in your barn, just looking around, just seeing what you got. No big deal. Oh, no. That is a criminal trespass, especially if I have something in my hand that belongs to him when I'm caught. If that happens, and even if you get away, right, and the neighbor calls 911, patrolman comes out, I seen this guy in my barn at night, and he had some of my tools in his hand. They will arrest that individual. And that means the cuffs in the back of the cruiser. And you go up to the jail, and they put you in a cell, and then they write a report, And in the morning, they hand that report to the prosecutor. And the prosecutor's like, I've had it with this guy. This guy trespassed on way too much property. I'm throwing the book at him. And the prosecutor prepares a case. They give you a date that you're to appear in court. And that prosecutor is going to be there to hammer you into the ground because your behavior sucks, right? So let's say you've got some Department of Agriculture wieners that come on your property after you have sent your letter to the director. Now, the director does not direct you as a citizen. He directs the people who work for him. You're telling him, I don't want your people on my property. It would be in his best interest to tell his people, hey, don't go on this property. They don't want you there. Because if they do, you're going to say, I need you to stay here right now because I need to make a 911 call. You are in the state of criminal trespass at this moment, and I need a patrolman here to make a report on it. And when the patrolman comes, you say, I want them arrested. Here's my proof, my certified letter that they have been trespassed from my property. They are now in criminal status, and I want them arrested. He doesn't have much choice. He doesn't. He'll probably want to talk you out of it. But the county cop, our county cops, the majority of them live amongst us. We know them. We take care of them. They take care of us. He is not going to like someone from the state criminally trespassing on your property. He's not going to like that. They could wind up in jail. There's a very good probability that they would wind up in jail. And then what does that do to their little career working for the Department of Ag? Oh, on this day, you were arrested for, it goes right in there, what's called a PIF, a personal information file that there is on each one of them. And it says right here, when they're going up for promotion, it says you were arrested. Criminal trespass. What the heck? Well, yeah, I was. Well, weren't you told not to be on that property? Yeah, but I thought I could probably sell them a license. Oh, you did? Huh, well, that's how you operate. I don't think we're going to promote you. So they burn their own bridge if they do come on your property. But you've got to have that letter down there. And so many of our people have been reluctant to do it. And I understand it because they think that this organization is uptight and out of sight, kind of like the FBI. They think that because they send that letter that they're going to be targeted by some slob lady with a clipboard. You're going to be targeted. Okay, come on, grow some. I heard something the other day, and when I start talking like this, I want to shake people up a little bit. But I heard Tucker Carlson. I've been listening to him a lot more than I used to since he went out on his own, because he's talking about real stuff. But he says, this isn't a totalitarian society. It is not. We own this country. The citizenry owns the country. We elect representatives to vote on our behalf at the state capitol. Now, they haven't been, but the representative republic concept is outstanding because you can look at your state rep's voting record and you can either reelect them or not. And we don't do that because we're not as involved as we should be. Just like your judge's record of putting people behind bars. If he's putting, like J6 people behind bars over just, taking a walk through the Capitol when the cops open the door for you and everything, that's a bad man or woman. The administrative warrant that was served here because of the contract that I was in, I really couldn't hold it against the judge because I had agreed to that. I couldn't really hold it against her. It wasn't a full-blown search warrant. That would have been a different story. There was no criminal activity, right? And it was actually just an overzealous food inspector who lost her job because of that, because of her overzealousness. The Department of Agriculture wanted to separate themselves from her because she was a loose gun and she was doing stupid things. And they did. They let her go. You know, I throw stones at the Department of Agriculture a lot. I think it is a crummy organization. But your involvement with them is on you. If you do business with them, that's on you. You can't say that they should be better people. Now, I know they got a lot of freaks and geeks working there. I know that. But so does Hobby Lobby. I mean, to the other extreme. They do. If you want the stuff that they got in there, you got to go in there. If you think that, well, they should hire a better class of people in it. Well, not Hobby Lobby, but let's say try going in Walmart after midnight and see who's stocking the shelves. And you're like, wow, they should hire better people in here. You don't like it, don't go in there. If you don't like the way the Department of Agriculture operates, don't contract with them. Don't get into a contract with them. They're going to try and sell it to you, but don't do it. You know, anytime you get in a contract, you want to know, hey, what's in this for me? What's in this for me? They offer you nothing. You're dumb for getting in a contract with them. It's not their fault that they're a crummy organization and they hire a bunch of dead weight. Who else is going to hire those people? You know, so I probably shouldn't throw stones at them as much as I do. A couple of times I've said to you all, I'm going to swear off doing that, but I can't help but getting back into it but Ashley will be the first one to tell you that she got duped and it cost her $90,000 to find out. And they were not going to tell her. I told her. And now I'm telling you, and you need to tell your friends. Anyway, I'm going to get going. I appreciate y'all coming by. Hey, tomorrow night, we should be having a consulting call. If you are Tribe Plus members, which I understand registration is going to open back up for Tribe Plus, you're entitled to a Zoom call twice a month. And you get the code the day of, and then you can get on and you'll see my picture and then a bunch of other people's pictures. And then if you are building a homestead and you want to ask questions, specific questions to me, it's a pretty good deal because if you have me out to your farm, it costs a lot of money. And I don't really have time to do it anyway. That's why we charge so much, because if we're going to break away from here and go to your farm, that costs money. It's just the way it is, you know. And if I'm flying someplace to do a farm, you're paying for the plane ticket, and I don't fly second class, because it's too small, right? So it costs, right? But we are on a mission to enable people, and this technology, this Zoom technology, is really good, and we've made a lot of gains in personal people's lives, personal farms' lives, because they're able to talk to somebody who's done it and had a level of success and is still, striving for, the next level and the next level. And then you're in with people that are doing the same thing. So it's a good place to be if you're trying to build up a farm and operation. But anyway, we're not going to be doing it tomorrow night. Why? Because I have family here and we have something planned that we can only do on a Wednesday night. And so we're going to put it off till next Wednesday. And I know I've already put you off one, but Tribe Day. And lately we've been talking about legal things, and I want to kind of put that to bed and get back into the hardware part of our farming operations and processes and techniques and tools and attitudes and all those things and how things fit together, because it is an intricate process. It's a forgiving process, but you can get further ahead if somebody says to you, "Hey, I don't think I'd do that." You know, there's people in the group that I really care for, and if they're going to do something dumb, I'd say, you know, I did that once. Yeah, that sure was dumb. I don't like to just say, no, that's dumb. Don't do that. I usually try to tell them I did it and it didn't work out. But if they're dead set on doing it, it's up to them. I will tell you this about Nourish Co-op. We helped them, we mentored them, and they have taken the ball and run with it. Just run with it. So I maintain contact just via text. Everything okay? And I can tell from the text back that morale is high, spirits are high. They don't need me at this point. So they're running on their own. There's a lot of decisions that you have to make when you get in a position like that. If they had never had a contract, they would never have lost the $92,000. Right? That's what doing business with the Department of Agriculture cost them. And if they stayed in the contract, they could expect a continued slap on the wrist like that. I think it's outrageous. I think it's outrageous. But something President Trump said, you know, people say things and they're good, smart things. He was being interviewed by Dr. Phil, of all people. I kid you guys, and I tell you that I listen to Dr. Phil. I don't. I don't listen to Oprah either. You know, they used to be on at the same time, right? I guess. I don't know. I never saw either show, but I got Skeeters in here. Dr. Phil was asking him about vengeance, right? Vengeance, because it looks like he's going to be elected. And a lot of people put a lot of pressure on him and a lot of us. And there are people in our society that want payback, you know, against the left, against the communist left. And Trump said, you know, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. Vengeance takes energy. And we will get our vengeance through our success. So he's going to focus, what he said anyway, he's going to focus his energy on making America great again. I don't care how you feel about that. It could be make Baker's Green Acres great again. If I spent all my time wanting to put the screws to the Department of Agriculture, I don't get anything out of that. The way that I get back at them for the damage that they did to my farm and my family is by being successful and helping you guys be successful, because they want you to feel as though you can't be a success in agriculture without them, because they see themselves as the professionals, because they went to the university and they became professionals within 4 years in agriculture. It's funny. It's actually comical when you think about it. So just disregard them. Make your operation as clean, dry, and serviceable and high speed as you can, profitable, and we will help you with that. That is what Tribe Plus is. You're paying a little stipend per month for us to keep you on the rolls. It's not much. It's not much. I should know what it is, but I don't. Every time registration happens, it shifts a little bit, because the more people that are in it, the less stipend there needs to be. But to pay for my time, it has to be paid for. You know, I'm not going to sit down on a Wednesday night every other week and spend 2 hours on the computer and not be compensated for it, not providing a quality service. So, you know, there's fair trade involved. And everybody that has been involved with it seems to think that it's pretty good, because they keep coming back. So if you're not a Tribe Plus member, you should be. And it supports this farm and this ministry, I guess, if you want to call it a ministry. And it helps us out. So I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to get going. Remember, anyone can farm.